How is the gospel of Jesus transforming lives? I think it's bringing hope to people. That was one thing that I continue to realize over and over again, is that a nation without the hope of Jesus really doesn't have any hope at all. My name is Levi, and earlier this summer I had the opportunity to travel to West Asia to visit one of the teams that downtown has the privilege of supporting and to worship with the church there. One of the things that surprised me the most on this trip was just how faithful the believers are. Walking throughout the city 5 times a day, you can hear the Islamic call to prayer ring out, and it even rang out during church when we were worshiping together. But to walk away from that and to reject the ways of Islam and to embrace the ways of Jesus is a very isolating thing. I had the opportunity that day to meet the youth group, as they called it, which was their young adults and college students. That night we were sitting around the beach chewing on sunflower seeds and drinking orange Fanta, and I was talking with one of the guys there about his experience going to university, and it was totally different from mine. He talked about how isolated and alone he was going to university. His own roommate even wouldn't really want to talk to him because he was a Christian. He shared with me just how much he has to rely on the goodness of God and trust in Jesus because socially he's not really welcome, even with his own people in his own country. And that was a very sobering moment, a very eye-opening moment of how blessed I truly am and how little my faith has actually costed me here in America. One thing that was also really interesting to learn about was how the church is using technology, specifically social media, to actually work around some of the limitations and restrictions that the government has imposed upon Christians to share the gospel. One of the programs that was so neat to see was a leadership program that the church has actually developed. Several years ago, the government cracked down on missionaries and foreigners that were there working for churches and kicked them all out of the country, essentially claiming they were terrorists. It was a wake-up call for the church there in West Asia because they realized we don't actually have our own leaders. We haven't raised up our own capable elders and deacons and people that can actually be evangelists for the gospel of Jesus. And so the church there in the southern part of this country has established a leadership program to rise up and train young men and older men as well to carry out the functions of the church and to actually not just tell people about Jesus, but thrive as a church and as a people of Jesus. I think one way that downtown members can be more involved in the work that's happening across the globe is, number one, they can just be mindful and pray. Taking time every day to remember our servants, remember the people that we have sent into the world, to send them to a different culture, a different language, a different people than our own, to carry the gospel of Jesus with them. But remembering them and praying for them and their families. But I also think praying for the people that God will raise up leaders in their church, in their native tongue, in their culture, that can bring the gospel all across the countryside there. And so I think just keeping them in your prayers and being mindful of some of their struggles, I think, is a huge help. And calling on the Spirit to intercede on their behalf is such a valuable thing.